One of the most powerful front-driven hot hatches ever made, Vauxhall's Astra VXR isn't all about power, and is all the better for it. 280 PS is certainly more than enough beneath the bonnet, but clever suspension, torque steer technology and a limited slip diff are the key factors that make this machine one of the most rewarding performance cars that Vauxhall has ever brought us. If you automatically default to Renault or Ford when choosing a fast hatch, give this VXR a try. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Fast Vauxhalls, and especially fast Vauxhall Astras, are something of an acquired taste. Machines for the max power generation. Get yourself behind the wheel of one and you certainly weren't very fast, but in a wildly wayward fashion that was fun at first, but wearing within a week. Selling such a car is fine if it's priced within reach of the Halfords, Hellraisers that can afford it, but there's not much profit in doing that. Time then to tame the beast, something not especially easy at the same time as giving it a slug of extra power. But a job, we're told, that Vauxhall has cleverly completed with this Astra VXR model, launched in the summer of 2012, as pretty much the most powerful hot hatch you can buy. On the face of it, there are a few contradictions here. Can a car tasked with putting a frantic 280 PS through just two front-driven wheels really be as civilised as a Volkswagen Golf GTI? It wasn't so long ago, after all, that this kind of output was what you found in supercars like Nissan Skyline GTR or the Honda NSX. Today, you can get it in a civilised family three-door that aims to gain for Vauxhall the hot hatch credibility it's long been seeking against its fastest rivals at the top of the shopping rocket segment. Cars like Volkswagen's Scirocco R, the Ford Focus ST and the Renault Sport Megane 265. To beat brands like these, this car is going to have to be very good indeed. A masterclass in everything General Motors knows about automotive dynamics, developed by a team of red-blooded race enthusiasts. And that's exactly what we're promised with this Astra VXR. Let's put it to the test. So, to first impressions. Well, there's certainly a potent boom from the twin exhausts when you fire up. But from then on, you should find the experience remarkably civilised, especially if you come expecting the max power monster that was this car's predecessor. Maybe you were one of the Halfords hooligans who drove it, but now a little more mature, want a car that's also a little more grown up, but like you, still hasn't lost its extreme sense of fun. That definition used to come complete with turbo lag, torque steer and a suspension setup so firm that chiropractor fees needed to be factored into your running costs. That none of this applies here can be credited to three dynamic features that ex-DTM racer Volker Strijkek and his development team have built into this Astra VXR. First up is a Drexler mechanical limited slip differential to help you get the power down through the corners. Then there's a clever hyperstrut suspension system that eliminates torque steer. That's that feeling of the wheel writhing in your hands under heavy acceleration. And finally, there's the standard fitment of Vauxhall's clever FlexRide adaptive suspension system, so that you only feel every bump and ripple in the road when you want to. All of this, I have to say, is probably of far more importance than what lies beneath the bonnet, as before a 2-litre turbo petrol unit, though this time with 280 PS, 40 PS more than previous, and 10% pokier than the engine you'll find in a rival Ford Focus ST. Now, this power plant has been developed primarily for torque, pulling power. There's 400 Newton meters of it, enough to hurl you at the horizon so quickly that rest to 60 is dispatched in just 5.9 seconds on the way to a top speed of 155 miles an hour. Very impressive, but also pretty pointless if all that speed is merely going to be scrubbed off in a cloud of tyre smoke every time you hurl the car into a corner. That doesn't happen here thanks to a Drexler mechanical limited slip diff, much the same as BMW fits to its M cars, there to tame the prodigious power and ensure that this Astra doesn't fry an unweighted inside front tyre as you accelerate out of the bend. All very good, but all a diff can really do is provide torque to the wheel that can best accept it. And if that wheel isn't supported by a top draw suspension system, then it's not going to be able to accept much torque in the first place. Which is why for this car, the VXR development team have further refined the brand's clever hyperstrut front suspension system, there to reduce camber changes during cornering, boost steering feel, and keep a lid on the kind of undesirable torque steer that in older turbocharged hot hatches was enough to enable you to change lanes with your right foot. There's none of that here, though in a straight line under hard power the wheel still isn't as composed as a serene Scirocco R or a racy Renault Sport Megane. Some buyers might like that, but it would be nice to have some choice in the matter. The kind of choice afforded to you by the third dynamic feature that makes this model what it is: Vauxhall's FlexRide adaptive suspension system. You can operate it through 3 modes via these buttons on the dash, going from normal to either sport or VXR settings. And in either of those two, you're able to adjust not only the suspension, but also the throttle response too. You won't want the most extreme VXR setting with its red mist instrument backlighting unless you're on a racetrack or an especially well-surfaced bendy back road. But like me, you might well end up wishing that its instant throttle response was also replicated on normal and sport modes. It's in VXR that you best appreciate the work that the engineers have done on the driving dynamics of this car, with springs that are 30% stiffer and a ride height that's 10mm lower than the Astra GTC coupe upon which this shopping rocket is based. There's also a slightly thicker anti-roll bar for extra cornering stiffness, dampers that have been tweaked by motorsport manufacturer ZF Sachs, and a bespoke Brembo braking system that's been tested to destruction at the fearsome Nürburgring Nordschleife racetrack, which was also the key testing ground for the 3-stage stability control system, which can be switched from normal to competitive and then fully off for track day terrors. A welcome respite from all this high-tech can be found in the steering, a good old-fashioned and feelsome hydraulic system. Negatives? Well, these big A-pillars can get in the way a little at roundabouts, and the 6-speed manual gear change is sometimes a little bit notchy, though Vauxhall at least has stopped fitting those huge awkward gear knobs. But these are details that tend to be forgotten in the cacophony of chuffs, whistles and muted roars every time you plant your right foot. It's a carefully created soundtrack that's especially nice in the mid to high level rev range, especially when changing up from 3rd to 4th under full throttle. Now perhaps this is a distraction, or perhaps it just makes you go faster than you normally would. But either way, this seems to be a car in which you end up barreling into corners 15 or 20 miles an hour faster than you think you're going. Just as well then that you've got all that high-tech electronic stuff to help gather everything up and create in this Astra a VXR that's finally come of age as a driver's car. Buy this car and you're going to need to get used to being stared at. Not only are the basic proportions right, but a lot of the detailing is spot on too, in contrast to some previous generation VXR models which could seem a little Halfords in their execution. Now, visual identifiers to enable VXR owners to set themselves apart from drivers of humbler Astra GTC models include specially sculpted front and rear bumpers, side skirts, a rear roof spoiler, and a set of exhaust tailpipes in a trapezoidal shape. Credit for the design goes to Brit Mark Adams and his team, who've created a decent balance between elegance and aggression that is stylish enough to make a Focus ST look rather dumpy and even a Megane Renault Sport seem a little awkward. Now, three main styling lines are used to create tension and define the outline of this silhouette. The first strikes through the door handles, stretching backwards to emphasise the dramatic stance and the broad shoulders. The second sweeps downwards from the top of the door to the bottom of the rear wing. And the third runs along the clean, rakish lines of the roof. Now, things are a lot less memorable inside, but this is still an impressive cabin with decent quality and plenty of thoughtful touches. Take these lovely sports seats, positioned 17mm lower than they would be in an Astra GTC coupe and fully 30mm lower than the seats you'll find in an ordinary Astra family 5-door hatch. Pneumatically adjustable cushions in the seat's sides mean that ultimate adjustability is there at the press of a button to keep you really firmly in place so that you're not hanging off the steering wheel when cornering hard. Other nice touches include the steering wheel. It's a leather-stitched affair that's much smaller than the Vauxhall norm, and you also get a nice alloy-plated set of pedals. Oh, and you'll also love the way that the instrument backlighting turns red when the VXR mode is selected on the standard FlexRide adaptive suspension system. The cabin feels genuinely solid. Certainly a lot beefier in terms of materials quality than a Renault or a Ford, and almost on par with a Volkswagen Scirocco. Yet it's true that the centre stack here is a little busy with buttons, and it takes a little while before you can unerringly hit the one that you want, though to Vauxhall's credit, most of the major functions can be marshalled from the steering wheel. Ahead of you, the instrument dials have piano black glossy rings. Not quite so nice is the dot matrix display in the centre driver information system, which looks a little dated in an era where many rivals are being launched with high-definition TFT screens. Still, it's a nice bonus to find that this is the most practical car in its class, both for people and for packages. Take these rear seats. Access is a bit tight, but once you're seated, you'll find that there's plenty of room for two fully sized adults, provided that they're not too long of leg and the journey isn't too lengthy. Good luck trying that in a Scirocco or a Renault Sport Megane. One thing you do have to watch out for is the sheer length of the doors on this car. Nudge your way into a tight supermarket car park and it can be a real contortionist job to lever yourself out without putting a dent in someone else's pride and joy. And the boot, well, it's a decent size at 370 litres, provided you can get your stuff over this rather high lip. You've got this useful underfloor storage compartment and a ski hatch so that you can poke through longer items. Now, if all that's not enough, then you've got the option, of course, of pushing forward the split folding rear bench. Do that, and you can free up as much as 1,165 litres of space. Now, around £27,000 sounds an awful lot of money to pay for a Vauxhall Astra, even a very fast and fashionable one. But look at the rivals and what you're getting for your money, and it doesn't seem that unreasonable. True, you could get yourself a Ford Focus ST for less, but you'd expect to pay less given that the blue oval model has 30 PS less under the bonnet. Anyway, there won't be that much in it if you order the Ford with a decent spec. A standard spec Renault Sport Megane 265 won't save you much either, nor will a BMW 120i Coupe M Sport. And as for a Volkswagen Scirocco R, well, you'll need around £4,000 more for one of those. If, having considered all of that, you decide that this Vauxhall is what you really want, then the selection process shouldn't be too taxing. There's just a single Astra VXR model on offer, only the single 3-door body style and no auto gearbox option. But what virtually all buyers for this car will want to choose is the optional Aero Pack, which for £1,000 more gives you this biplane rear spoiler, bigger side skirts and an upgrade of the standard 19-inch alloys to 20-inch items. Oh, and it'll reduce the weight of your car quite significantly. How so? Well, because the 20-inch rims are expensively forged rather than using the cheaper process of casting. Devil's in the detail, you see. The VXR doesn't do at all badly for standard equipment. All models including niceties like a leather-covered multifunction steering wheel through which you can access a DAB digital radio via an infotainment system that includes USB connectivity and Bluetooth connection. You also get a lovely set of sports seats which you can upgrade with leather trim and electrical adjustment. Popular options include satellite navigation and an adaptive forward lighting system which will enable you to better see your way around corners at night. Now, as far as safety is concerned, it's pretty much covered. There's a full suite of airbags, ABS with brake assist of course, and an excellent 3-stage stability control system, as well as the usual ISOFIX child seat fastenings. The hot hatch was founded on the principle that it offered an affordable and practical option for the keen driver. Now, while this Astra VXR clearly has a practical side, it's worth remembering that it's one of the heaviest hitters performance-wise in the shopping rocket sector, and no car with this amount of grunt is going to come with pocket-sized running costs. That said, it manages to turn in some fuel and CO2 figures that really aren't at all bad when you consider what you're getting. There wouldn't be much point in buying this car and then hardly ever driving it with your foot flat to the floor. But if you were to do so, then you might well approach the published combined cycle fuel figure of 34.9 miles to the gallon. That's around 12% better than the old Astra VXR car, remember, that put out 40 PS less. How so? Well, much of the credit for this lies with a start-stop system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Now, this also helps with a CO2 figure that at 189 grams per kilometre, that's 14% better than the old car, really isn't too bad for something of this potency. In fact, it's better than you'll get from a Renault Sport Megane 265, which is 15 PS down on this Astra. Insurance, of course, isn't going to be cheap. It's Group 35E, and it might be worth getting a few quotes before committing to buy. But for many, the real big-ticket cost of ownership item is going to be depreciation. Already, though, experts are suggesting that this Astra VXR might do a better job of clinging onto its value than perhaps you might expect. They reckon that after 3 years and 30,000 miles, this car should still be worth about 32% of what you originally paid for it. Now, that might sound a bit steep, but bear in mind that a Renault Sport Megane 265 would manage just 28%. A Volkswagen Scirocco R would, yes, do better, but that car would cost significantly more to buy and offers slightly less power and equipment. Finally, bear in mind that this car comes complete with a unique lifetime warranty package, there to give first owners comprehensive peace of mind however long they own it. That doesn't include tyres, of course, which is a pity because they're going to be a major area of expense. So vast is the amount of torque transmitted through the front wheels to the tarmac. That this Astra VXR is the most accomplished hot hatch that Vauxhall has ever produced isn't really up for debate. It's head and shoulders above any fast hatch or coupe that's worn the Griffin badge in the past. But how much is that actually saying? What really counts is how this car stacks up against the best of its rivals in this sector. Cars like the Volkswagen Scirocco R, the Ford Focus ST and the Renault Sport Megane. Can it really be thought of as a viable alternative to this talented trio? Absolutely. You see, this is more than just a hot hatch. It's a proper performance car with all the depth of engineering that term implies. Which is why, as well as being extremely fast, this Astra can also deliver a surprisingly cultured ride and a driving proposition that doesn't force red mist upon you when you don't want to shorten the straights and straighten the corners. When it's pouring down with rain, the road ahead is infested with speed humps, and you merely want to turn up the stereo, forget about driving dynamics, and get yourself home. Will it hold its value as well as the Sirocco? Sell as prolifically as a Focus ST? Or dance through an off-camber corner with the poise of a Renault Sport Megane? Probably not. But as a talented all-rounder with near supercar performance at a sensible price, there's a heck of a lot to be said for it. Which means that what we have here is a VXR that's finally come good. Respect, it seems, is most definitely due.